I know we were kind of just about to talk about that year, but just talk about what that was like for you to go inward in the midst of the pandemic to come up with this amazing. Because even when you do your charcuterie board thing, you even incorporate beer. Like right now, we're going to have to talk about a little bit of wine, but it's just, how was that for you? How did that come about for you?
You know, it was tough, and I honestly can't take credit for all of it because I've had so many supporters, so many people who've just been like, "Hey, try this. Hey, think about maybe going in this direction." So just people
Yeah.
like throwing ideas at me because they could see, I think, the little wheels in my head spinning with the pandemic just bringing everything to a halt. Uh,
Mhm.
and I also want to give props to my sister, Musamwari, because she actually had someone deliver a charcuterie board to her in Austin. And when we did one of those brewery tastings in Austin, she showed me the picture and she was like, "You could do this." And I'm looking at it like, here she goes again with one of her ideas.
Shout out to Olivia.
And that next week, when I made that board, it was like, okay. And then somebody else asked me to make them a board. And I was like, oh, okay. I can see where this can go. All right. All right. So it was hard. It was hard, like pivoting because,
Mhm.
um, I had been so bought into the idea of my brewery tour. I got kind of stuck there for a minute. And there are just so many things that come into play with that. But thinking about, making that leap now, a lot of my life has been food. We grew
Mhm.
up growing our own food. We grew up having to go and see what it feels like and looks like, and sometimes
Mhm.
tastes like to be that person out in a field growing stuff and tending it and harvesting it and taking it from one form into another. So
Mhm.
um, I think one thing that has made it easier for me to make this transition has been the idea of food preservation and how
Mhm.
we take food in one form and turn it into another. So
Mhm.
when you're thinking about taking malt and turning it into beer or gin or whatever else people use malt for, just thinking about how you do that, or taking something like milk and turning it into cheese. Every single culture has that. And so
Mhm.
just kind of drawing from those things and starting to think about, well, yeah, okay, so there are all these backstories about beer. What about food? There have
Mhm.
to be backstories about food. There have to be different techniques and forms of all of these things that we see in the food world that kind of help us to keep those things alive and going. So I
Mhm.
in my mind, it's always been that kind of making connections. Spider webbing is what I call it in my head, because I'm always trying to connect to my childhood and those
Yep.
memories that I had growing up. Um,